Today's pledge is by Johnny Wynn from CU Denver in Denver, Colorado.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Ms. Randall, please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt, Becker J, Becker K, Beckman, Benavides, Bridges, Buck, Buckner, Carver, Catlin, Coleman, Covarrubias, Danielson, Escar, Everett, Exum, Foote, Representative Foote,
Excused.
Garnett, Janal, Gray, Hamner, Hanson, Herod, Hooten, Humphrey. Oh, thank you. Jackson. Oh, Kennedy. Thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day. Kraft Tharp. Representative Kraft Tharp. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lebsock. Lee. Leonard. Lewis. Liston. Lontine. Representative Lontine. Oh, thank you. Lundeen. McKean. McLaughlin. Melton. There he is. Michelson Janae.
Excused.
Mitch Bush. Navarro. Neville. Nordberg. Pabon. Pedersen. Rankin. Ransom. Rosenthal. Sane. Salazar. Sias. Singer. Thurlow. Valdez. Van Winkle. Weissman. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Winter. Wist. Representative Wist. Oh, two. Young. Madam Speaker. Good morning. Thank you, sir. Just Michelson Janae. You're going to be gone next Tuesday, but now you're not.
With 64 yes votes, 1 excused, we have a quorum.
Yeah.
Good morning, Representative Exum, right on time.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of the Journal of Monday, February 13, 2017 be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion. All in favor. Oh, Representative Melton.
No, never mind.
Okay. You have heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. That motion passes. Members, this morning we are going to skip announcements and introductions. We're going to go ahead and begin with the consideration of the memorial. We have many guests here today, and so we want to go ahead and get started with that. So please do take your seats. And at your seats, there's a nice Valentine's Day cookie from me. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Mr. Randall, please read the title of HM 1001.
House Memorial 1001 by Representative Singer concerning memorializing former Representative Betty Swinson.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move House Memorial 1001 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas former Representative Betty Virginia Swinson departed this life on December 20th of 2016 at the age of 83. And whereas Representative Swinson was born November 4th, 1933 in Salina, Kansas to E. Leonard and Myrtle Nelson and spent her formative years in rural Kansas surrounded by a strong Swedish-American community. And whereas Representative Swinson graduated from high school at age 16 and went on to earn an undergraduate degree in math education from Bethany College in Lindsborg, Kansas, before marrying her class rival and best friend, Bill Swinson, in 1955, and moving together to Alabama and Texas for Mr. Swinson's military obligations, and then back to Kansas for postgraduate study. And whereas Representative Swinson and her family settled permanently in Longmont, Colorado, where she began her service to others by actively supporting her church's charitable work and volunteering in her Longmont community. And whereas Representative Swinson represented Longmont in the Colorado General Assembly from 1985 to 1992 and served as the House Majority Whip in 1989 and 1990 and as the Vice Chair for the House Health, Environment, Welfare, and Institutions Committee in 1991 and 1992. And whereas, in addition to her leadership roles in the House, Representative Swinson sponsored legislation to make a custodial parent responsible for part of a child's financial support after a divorce, if that parent has enough income, to avoid placing the sole financial support burden on the non-custodial parent. And whereas Representative Swinson was also integral in the passage of a measure that led to the creation of a voter-approved, tax-supported stadium district for the construction of Denver's now well-known Coors Field Stadium. And whereas Representative Swinson was chosen by American Mothers, Inc. to represent Colorado as Mother of the Year in 1985 and spent her remaining years supporting that organization's work with new mothers and strong families, as well as maintaining an active role in politics after her legislative tenure. And whereas Representative Swinson possessed a passion for creating beautiful handmade textiles, from clothing and sweaters to quilts and sleeping bags, and for baking hearty homemade bread, often waking her children with the noisy kneading of dough. And whereas Representative Swinson traveled widely, visiting every continent except Antarctica, and during her travels made great efforts to find relatives, dead or alive, in every corner of the world. And whereas Representative Swinson is fondly remembered by her husband, Bill Swinson, her children, Julie Rooser, David Swinson, and Joy Swinson, her sister, Mary Lynn Anderson, her 7 grandchildren, and her 5 great-grandchildren, as well as by her many extended family members, all who will miss her generosity of spirit, her wicked wit, and appreciation for all life offers. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado that in the death of Representative Betty Swinson, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a devoted public servant and an outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the 71st General Assembly, pay tribute to Representative Swinson for her years of dedicated public service and do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of her family. Be it further resolved that a copy of this memorial be sent to former Representative Bill Swinson, Miss Julie Rooser, Mr. David Swinson, Miss Joy Swinson, and Miss Mary Lynn Anderson.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, please be seated. Thank you, members, for taking a little bit of time out of our busy day today to remember Representative Betty Swenson. For those of you who don't know, let's forget about House district numbers for a second because our constituents, let alone ourselves, don't remember what those really are for a second. The Swensons were and are a Longmont institution. Bill and Betty Swenson not only were here at the Capitol, but have been institutions in the community for decades. A lot of us think about term limits now and wonder what that means for us, and I think what Betty Swenson has done, what her husband, also former Representative Swenson, has done, has reinvested themselves in the community, the true nature of a citizen lobbyist. And so I did a little bit of research, and I'm not going to read these to you. I know we're not allowed items in the well, but I figured since they're session laws, I could hold these up for a second. My thanks, of course, to Molly Otto and to my interns for pulling this up. We did took a look back at Representative Swenson's career, and I have to admit, while I never spent much time with her, our legacies hopefully will be similar. I hope that I can live up to her promise and what she has done for kids and domestic matters. You heard in the memorial what she did in terms of her contributions to our family law system, ensuring that kids have the financial support that they need and making sure that parents are held accountable but not put in the poorhouse at the same time. What she did within our child welfare system still rings echoes today, ensuring that kids get the right kind of access to psychological treatment and that we act in the best interests of a child. These are the kinds of things that we actually build our current law off of. Her steps were the kinds of things that we continue to work on. And the way I'm going to close today, before we listen to former members, is by saying that when I first got here, and I see this look in some of your eyes now, I was appointed on a vacancy. I was appointed when my predecessor decided to take a job that pays a little bit better and represent the citizens of Boulder County a little bit closer. And I found myself about this time 5 years ago, standing in the well, eyes as big as saucers, trying to make heads or tails of this place. And my eyes have gotten a little bit dimmer, and I'm still trying to make heads or tails. But here's one thing that I have learned from that day. Walking into the lobby, shaking hands, getting to know people. People asked, what district are you going to represent? I say, oh, House District 11. They go, where's that? I say, oh, it's up in Longmont. They say, oh, Bill and Betty Swenson. Right away. No question about it, Bill and Betty Swenson. And the second thing that they said is, such nice people. They were so, some of us get remembered for the bills that we pass, but so many of us are really remembered by how we treat each other. And that has a longer lasting impression oftentimes than the bills that we write. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't vote for my bill later in the business committee, but hopefully you'll remember, and that I'll remember, that really the onus is on us to treat each other well. And that legacy leaves an impression that hopefully sets the stage to pass the right kind of laws, whether it's for kids, whether it's in criminal law, whether it's in the world of natural resources, all bills that Representative Betty Swenson worked on. And so with that, unless there are other members that would like to speak right now, I ask for a brief recess to allow for former members. Oh, and it looks like we've got someone.
So before we do that, Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I have to tell you, there's something about kind of your nationality, and Betty was a Swede, and we giggle because we Swedes stick together. And every time I saw her, she was always so full of smiles. But what was amazing about Betty is that she would make these little satchels that I could go walk precincts with. And it would either have a something to put a bumper sticker on your car or a place to put your palm cards. she will live with me always as I carry that satchel around to this day still when I walk precincts. I love Betty, and I love Bill, and I'm grateful that she is in my heart, and she will remain there always. So God bless you all.
Thank you, Representative Buck. Any further discussion? Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And seeing no further discussion, under Rule 26F, I request a recess for former members who wish to speak.
The House will stand in recess. We have several former members who are here today. I would like to go ahead and start with Speaker Berry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Singer, for bringing forward this memorial for former member Betty Swenson of Longmont. And former member Bill Swenson, it's so good to see you here today. Bill and I also served together, I think in the late 90s, perhaps 1995, 1998. Betty Swenson and I were both first elected in 1984. Some people called that the Reagan landslide. Madam Speaker, that year, 47 Republicans and 18 Democrats were elected by the people of the state of Colorado. I doubt that'll happen again in my lifetime. At any rate, Representative Swenson and I served 8 years together, and the last 2 sessions she served here, I had the honor of being Speaker of the House, 1991, 1992. I appointed her as the Vice Chair of the Committee on Health, Environment, Welfare, and Institutions, what it was called in those days, and she served very well in that capacity. She cared deeply about those issues, as you've been hearing about. Now, I was hoping, Madam Speaker, that former Representative Norma Anderson would be here to tell this story because she could probably tell it better than I. But nevertheless, I think we have to recognize Betty and the Whippettes. Well, what was that? Well, back in 1988, the voters of Colorado passed an amendment to the Constitution that said no longer could caucuses bind themselves and the members when they were considering the long appropriations bill. Before that, the majority party would go into caucus and bind itself by voting on the various state agencies and on the proposed amendments. Well, after 1988, that could no longer be done. But then Speaker Bev Bledsoe wanted to still do something like that. So we would go into caucus, we would hear the various state agencies, and we would recess between each of the sessions of those, or between each of the presentations on those state agencies. Well, at that time, Betty Swenson was the House Majority Whip. And so Speaker Bledsoe came up with this idea that we would recess between each of the sessions and go out into the hallway, and Betty and her lieutenants would go get commitments for people to vote on the various sections of the budget and the amendments. And so the press picked this up. I couldn't remember whether it was the lobbyists or the Rocky Mountain News, Bill, but they came up with Betty and the Whippettes, and they did a story on it. And Betty was very efficient in getting her lieutenants, there were probably 5 or 6 of them, to go out and count these votes and then go back in and resume the deliberations. Well, that only lasted those 2 years, and after that we went on to different things. You know, just one more thing. On a personal note, I really fondly remember Betty the day my mother died. My mother died on May 5th, 1992. It was the 118th day of that legislative session. We were in the last 3 days of the session. I was Speaker of the House, lots of pressure to get the final things done. And my mother died unexpectedly in Colorado Springs, and it was quite an emotional shock to me. But I vividly remember Betty coming to me, Mother of the Year in 1985, as you heard in the memorial, and really being almost a surrogate mother to me that day, and helping me grieve a little. And Maria and I had to be on our way down to Colorado Springs to take care of matters, but Betty was so sweet to me the day my mother died, and I'll always remember that. You know, my good friend Bonnie Finley works with me over here at Casey, and she was a dear, dear friend of Betty's. And when we talked about Betty the other day, and this was mentioned in the memorial, she mentioned Betty's wicked sense of humor. You know, you could get into these things that were very serious and very important to the state of Colorado, but Betty always had a way kind of toward the end of that to break people up with a little levity with her wicked sense of humor. So thank you again, Representative Singer and members of the House, for taking a little time to remember Betty Swenson. And Madam Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Paul Weissman, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you as well. We have some extra cookies if you like one.
I love one, thank you. You know, Betty was great, working with her and working against her. I came in the Senate the year that she had left the House, but we had worked against each other before even that time. Redistricting, as you all know, happens every 10 years, and Betty was a firm believer in Longmont. And her idea of Longmont and the power of Longmont and what's good for Longmont was a little bit different than mine. Longmont's one of those cities that's sort of on the bubble. You could sort of draw it as one seat, but you might leave a couple precincts or a couple neighborhoods out, or you could split it in two. And both after 1990 census and after the 2000 census, Betty and I were on different sides of that game. But we were on different sides in a nice way, and I think that that's what you hear all the time with Betty Swenson. When you talk to her colleagues that served with her, you talk to people that debated and argued against her at redistricting hearings. Yeah, she was nice about how she went about her business, which is important. The other thing that was great about Betty is she was civic engagement before civic engagement was cool. She would always bring groups down to the Capitol long after she had left. And I'd get the phone call the night before of, there will be 7 today, or there will be 10 today, or there's going to be 12 today. And I'd do my job. I'd go and grab them all pink books, and I'd grab them calendars, and I'd grab them status sheets, and I'd meet with Betty and whatever crew she had down here, because her interest was people ought to understand this place. People ought to understand what we do. People ought to understand how to get involved, and people ought to understand what's happening down here. And she did that countless times after she had left, and it was great to work with her, bringing, whether it's folks from the church that she brought down or students from a local school that she brought down to work with her and do that. It again is probably appropriate that we're doing the memorial for Betty Swenson on Valentine's Day. As I was walking in the building, unless you're Senator Baumgartner and you think I'm up to no good, people ask you what you're doing down here. And it said, well, they're doing the memorial for Betty Swenson today. And they all say, and I heard it multiple times walking in, she was so nice. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before either Betty Swenson or I were ever elected to the legislature, we were friends. I'm another one of those Swedes. We worked together in the regional women's organization that was part of our church. I always remember Betty as a strong woman of faith, and she used her many, many talents to reach out and assist her neighbors in need, whether they were across the street, across town, or across the globe. She, in that situation of the women's organization, Betty was the treasurer, and she mentored me as the next treasurer. And I'll always remember the fact that Betty would talk about making numbers dance. And for the mathematically challenged, that's really hard to, hard to get your arms around. One thing that my husband remembers is that, and this was after Betty had left the house, she was in charge of the spouse portion of the orientation, the freshman orientation. And he remembers what a wonderful job Betty did, and she certainly, it's kind of in line with what Representative Weissman was saying about she brought her neighbors to the legislature, but she was also teaching the spouses of the legislators what's expected of them. Betty served her community well, and she brought her values to the legislature. And in my mind, that's the best legacy a legislator can leave. I miss you, Betty.
Representative Swenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And if you detect a slight frog on my throat this morning, I think you'll understand why. But I'm very thankful to the Representative Singer and the members of the House here for bringing this memorial. It means a great deal to me, and I'm sure it would be to Betty too. We, as was stated, had a long association with the state legislature and other forms of government. When she was first elected to this house, I was serving as the mayor of Longmont. And over the years that we were in service to our community and our state, I think we went through 13 elections. And there was a period of time, I think it was 9 years in a row, where we had an election every year. That can be tiring. I'm sure you understand that. But this is a great moment for me. I know Betty loved to bring children down here after she had left the house to take them on tours, and she would do that just about every year for a long period of time. And she was serving in several organizations up until the last few weeks of her life. And again, I thank you all for allowing us to be here today and to bring this tribute to my wife. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Swenson. Seeing no further seeing no further members that want to speak to this at this point, the House will come back to order. Representative Singer, any further discussion?
No, Madam Speaker, I renew my motion for House Memorial 1001.
Thank you, Representative Singer. The question before us is a passage of HM 1001. Please open the machine. Representative Herod, Representative Williams.
Where are those whips and whipettes when you need them?
Please excuse Representative Williams and Representative Randall, please, or Mr. Randall, please close the machine. With 63 yes votes, 0 no votes, 2 excuse, HM 1001 is passed. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the current roll call of the House be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call of the House will be listed as co-sponsors. Thank you very much. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This time I'd like to introduce the guests we have in the chamber today. And once again, thank you, Representative Swenson, and to your wife, Representative Swenson. You opened doors for me before you even knew that you were opening doors for me, just through the way that you carried yourselves and how you represented Longmont. So thank you for that. And with that, let me introduce you one more time to former Representative and Bill Swenson, husband of Betty Swenson. Joy Swenson, please stand up one at a time as I introduce you. Joy Swenson, the daughter. Michael Cano, hopefully I've gotten that correct, son-in-law. David Swenson, son of Betty Swenson. Julie Reeser, daughter. Willie Reeser, son-in-law. And friend and colleague and council member Bonnie Finley. Please join me in welcoming each of them.
Thank you very much, Representative Singer. Announcements and introductions. Any announcements and introductions? I have one announcement today. For today only, Representative Lantine will replace Representative Michael Sanjanay on the Public Health and Human Services Committee. Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we will be caucusing now on supplementals. I think everyone knows to go directly, when we're done here, to LSB-A and LSB-B for our separate caucuses. And then we will be returning to the floor immediately after that for further business. So after further announcements and introductions, we will go to recess and proceed immediately over to LSB.
Thank you, Majority Leader Becker. Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. If you didn't receive your flower on your desk, please let me know. This year, I made sure to include the men because you all had hurt feelings last time. So happy Valentine's Day. Make sure to tell the people you love in your life how much you appreciate them.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Pedersen, for not hurting my feelings this year. Colleagues, tomorrow you'll have an announcement on your desk, but I just want to make you aware of it today. Thursday, high noon, is Sportsman's Caucus, hot dog day at the Capitol. Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions, Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm not sure if the Denver Montessori junior and senior high school civics classes are still here. If you are, raise your hand in the gallery. Well, let's just wave generally to the people in the gallery. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. There they are. There they are. All right. Welcome to the state capitol.
Representative Escar and Representative Arndt. And Representative Sane.
Greetings, colleagues. Happy Valentine's Day from your caucus chairs and assistant chair. We have been busy in the kitchen on the weekend making homemade Valentine's cookies.
Wow, I am impressed.
They also made ones in the shape of the bone, so if you're in the caucus, you don't eat the hearts, you eat the dog bone shaped ones. You got that? So we'll put them in there by coffee.
All right. Thank you, Madam Caucus Chairs and Assistants, Madam Caucus Chair. Representative Lantine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the cookie.
Oh, it is my pleasure.
So, folks, tomorrow is Mobile Learning Lab Day, and there will be an actual mobile learning lab parked out somewhere around the Capitol complex. I haven't divined where. I think it's on the south side. So if you want to tour it, it'll be there all day tomorrow. I encourage you to go take a look and see what our community colleges are doing to bring learning to students where they are. So it's a great program, and please come and check it out. And this is the Mobile Learning Lab from Pueblo Community College, as Representative Escar just pointed out to me.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So you made the cookies? In the middle of the night,
I brought the Valentine's Day cookies.
Wow. Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day to you.
Happy Valentine's Day. I'm very impressed that our speaker would be up in the middle of the night making us cookies.
I brought the Valentine's Day cookies.
You would stop and buy cookies. But I do have something official.
Okay, Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you. So members, to let you know, the Business Affairs and Labor Committee will be meeting today at 1:30, LSBA, and we will be joined by Representative Singer for Senate Bill 17058, Employee Agent Purchase of Alcohol Beverages, and by Representatives Danielson and Van Winkle for Senate Bill 013, FPPA, Multi-Employer Deferred Compensation Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kraft-Tharp. And actually, James Lucero deserves some credit. He helped bring the cookies today for everybody from me. So please thank our lovely advisor, James Lucero. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and happy Valentine's Day to you.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, too.
Members of the Health Insurance and Environment Committee, upon adjournment in room 107, we're going to have a presentation from CIVIC, the Center for Improving Value in Healthcare. It should be very informative, but that's upon adjournment when we return from our budget issues. Thank you.
Any further announcements or introductions? Majority Leader Becker, hold on. Members, this is important. Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, members. I want to change what I said previously. After caucusing, we will not come back to the floor. There just won't be time. So, and I also want to remind you to bring your supplemental books to your caucus if you want to ask any questions of your JBC members. And with that, I move that the House stand in recess until 1:30 today.
Seeing no objection, the House stand in recess until 1:30 p.m. today.